Yeah.
Sorry, that made me really get quite emotional.
Millie Kendall, founder of the British Beauty Council.
An expert in beauty retail and marketing.
My name's Millie Kendall and I'm one half of Ruby Millie.
Ruby Millie came to us at a time that was absolutely perfect for boots, and I'd like to think perfect for them as well.
When we did Ruby Millie, we pitched it to Boots and they gave us 7 million quid to do the brand.
But you wouldn't even get that now?
No.
Why did you start the British Beauty Council?
I think I started the council because we were an industry not taken seriously. The beauty industry makes £28.4 billion contribution to GDP, and it's larger than the aerospace industry, larger than car manufacturing. It is enormous.
Why did you resign from Ruby and Millie?
I just started to not look like me.
Yeah.
Sorry, that made me really get quite emotional.
Hi, I'm Abbey Clancy and welcome to Exhibit A. And today we are with beauty boss, Millie Kendall.
I like that title. Thank you very much.
Of course, I know who you are, but for anyone who doesn't, can you tell us who you are?
Oh, goodness. So I'm currently the CEO of the British Beauty Council, which is kind of, it's an advocacy group that represents the British beauty industry. And that's everyone from your local hairdresser to the large FMCGs organizations, small beauty brands, just representing them really with regards to government and business leaders. And who am I in that game? I founded it. So I'm the founder. And previously I had a makeup brand called Ruby Millie that was quite well known in quite a few stores. Mm. Probably anyone over the age of 35 will remember that brand.
I know it.
Do you?
I used to have it.
Do you? Okay, good.
So we're going to start with a few quick fires.
Okay.
Natural or glam?
Each one has a place.
Eyes or lip?
Eyes.
Hair or skin?
Oh, goodness. Hair or skin, hair. That's such a... I'm a hairdresser's daughter. That's so obvious, isn't it?
I'm a hairdresser's daughter.
Oh, right.
Well.
There you go. Yeah.
Beauty icon?
Oh, Blondie, Debbie Harry.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
What makes you happy?
People. I like people. I think talking to people, being around people, look at other people's energy makes me really happy.
Morning routine?
Goodness, what is my morning routine? I'm very, very quick in the bathroom. Don't like to spend a lot of time sort of doing all that nonsense in the bathroom. To me, a bathroom is a place to wash and get out. Mm. And then I spend probably about 45 minutes at my dressing table, listening to a podcast, drinking a cup of tea, and just creaming up.
Nice. And your evening beauty routine? Same thing?
Nothing really.
No.
I don't think I have a particular evening beauty routine. I'm a sort of flop into bed kind of person. I mean, I'll wash my face and brush my teeth, but I don't really do very much at night. I'm probably working quite late, so I kind of just get home and think, just go to bed.
See, I'm shower, cream, cup of tea, biscuit.
I would not sleep if I did that at night.
No, I can't sleep without a cup of tea.
I do drink herbal tea at night, and I'm quite, even if I've had a few drinks, I will still come home and drink pretty much a pint of herbal tea.
Yeah.
So I have to knock that back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I only drink yogi tea.
What is that?
It's the best tea. You can like use one tea bag for like 5 cups of tea. It's just a brand, but it's like, I think it's the best brand of herbal tea.
Describe yourself in 3 words.
I'm literally a bull in a china shop. Like, is that right? Bull in, no, 3 words.
Bull, china, shop.
Perfect.
Bull in shop.
Yeah. Bull in shop. Yeah, basically. Yeah. Bull in China. I don't know. No. A lot of people say I'm organized chaos. I don't know, like the definition of organized chaos.
What scares you?
Honestly, Trump, not non-factual information. I'm like a seeker of facts. Lies. Don't like lies.
Yeah.
Can't bear liars. Anything that's not true scares me.
Are you a feminist?
Well, I used to think I was, and now I don't even really know what the definition of it is. And I've been interviewed quite a long time over my career where like I've probably advocated for feminism, but to me, feminism isn't being a man hater. So I don't know whether I agree with the definition of it anymore. I mean, I do think, I can do anything a man can do. I don't dislike them because of that.
Yeah.
In fact, bring it on. I quite enjoy them. But, I don't, I think in the definition that I hold in my head, yes, probably.
Your career started at the age of 13. You washed hair in your dad's salon.
It's illegal now to work that young, isn't it?
Is it? I had a job at 30. I worked as a florist.
Oh, did you?
Used to love
That's a nice job. I would have liked to have done that.
I worked in a market as well on a vintage store.
I did have a market store when I was about 13 in Camden Market, actually.
I loved it. I love those days.
Yeah.
But, starting your career so young, beauty was obviously in your family DNA. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes. So, goodness. So my dad's a hairdresser and I had a Saturday job washing hair in a salon and I just really enjoyed it. And it was, I didn't enjoy the actual work, to be honest, but I liked the money and I liked the people and that I found really enjoyable. And I really enjoyed the sort of social aspect of like meeting clients, talking to clients and kind of just getting to know people.
Hairdressers know, you tell your hairdresser
everything, yeah.
Everything?
Yeah.
And what is that?
Well, the first thing I did when I came in here was I had some juicy gossip. So, the thing is that I really enjoyed that kind of conversation with people. And so I kind of I thought the beauty industry was like a conduit to that. It wasn't that. And also I think that, and fundamentally this is what helps me do my job really well, I think, is that I believe that beauty really benefits people in a lot of other ways other than just how they
Looking
look.
good, yeah.
I do feel that looking good makes you feel better. Mm-hmm. Although it's like, sounds a bit cheesy, I do actually believe it. And so we all refer to having a bad day as, God, my hair doesn't look good, or I've not got enough makeup on, or, et cetera, or my skin doesn't feel so nice, or whatever it is. So I really learned quite early on that A, you could make good money, and I was earning where none of my friends were, and B, I could have a job. There were jobs out there that were really enjoyable, where you could talk to people and have fun. And so I just continued really from there, kind of left school when I was 15, said I wanted to do hairdressing, which I was absolutely appalling at. You would not want me anywhere near you with scissors or a blow dryer. I'm terrible at like the actual physical manifestation. But I understand the sort of community and I believe in the sort of deeper meaning of it. So I don't know why I've sort of, so I've kind of taken what I needed from it and kind of turned it into something else. I think the other part of my career progression was that I so fangirled over hairdressers and makeup artists because I have so much respect for what they do. The job is hard. You stand on your feet all day. The hours are long. You really do, you absorb a lot of emotional baggage from other people. And you have to be a creative craftsman at the same time. And so to me, that is fascinating and brilliant. And I've never thought they really get enough credit for the work that they do. And it's always frustrated me.
Is that why you founded the British Beauty Council?
Yeah. Just years of I think the thing is that there are a number of aspects to it. The first one was because when I was younger, I was quite bright and I took exams, like entrance exams for very, very, very posh private schools, public schools, they used to call them. I don't know if they still do, all over London. And I passed exams and I didn't get in because my parents didn't either have the money or have the job of a parent that they would want at the school. And I remember I kept being turned down for these schools, but I'd passed the exams. We couldn't understand why. And then the final school was a grammar school called Henrietta Barnett, which was actually, so I passed the exam. My parents went for the interview. And my dad walked in with a briefcase, like a businessman. And I thought, he's a hairdresser. And I've always imagined that he had like scissors and a comb in that case. Because what else would you carry in a briefcase? And I think he was like trying to sort of give the impression that he was quite serious. And that's always stuck with me ever since I was 11 years old, that's a really shitty thing for somebody to have to do or to feel like they have to do.
To be respected or taken seriously.
And that's partly the catalyst for the British Beauty Council. Then obviously Brexit happened, Trump. I was like on the floor crying, thinking, what does the future hold? And I've got lots of friends with brands and nobody really knew where everything was, you know, where we were going to go, how we could trade outside of Europe. And I just thought, do you know what? It's really annoyed me that we've never been taken seriously. And so, yeah, that was it. It was like, I mean, I've had, you know, male bosses of mine treat me so appallingly over the years, even though I was bright and I was making them money. I mean, it's astounding when I think back at it, you know.
My mum was a teacher, like she taught hairdressing and she worked in a college for, you know, kids. I think they were probably from the age of 14, 15 going there. And all the kids who failed their exams, they would throw into beauty, beauty or hairdressing. And even when they were, my mum used to say, this kid can like cut hair like phenomenally or so creative, like doing the makeup and whatever. And it wouldn't even get recognised.
We're considered the stupid people that couldn't do anything else. So therefore, you're sort of shunted into this career.
But beauty is such a huge part of, you know, everyday culture, you know, music, film, the magazines, you know, it's not just about the model or photographer. Without these creatives around them, it wouldn't be and the full
also,
picture.
Every single person, it touches every single person's life every single day.
Every day.
Every single person wakes up, they brush their teeth, they put deodorant on, they wash. A lot of times when I'm talking to, you know, politicians or policymakers, they'll say, well, I'll talk to my wife because I don't really know how this affects me. And I'm like,
you do?
Oh my God, you had a shower today.
Prior to the recognition you got from your brand, Ruby and Millie, what were the key steps leading up to that point?
I found myself sort of at 13 in America, in LA, in Beverly Hills, feeling a bit like an outsider. And so actually probably I started working on a Saturday because I probably didn't have any friends that I could feel like I could hang out with. And that actually, interestingly, I had good conversations with the clients. Anyway, so I went from there. I decided I wanted to do hairdressing. So my dad got me a job at Tony & Guy on Davis Street in Mayfair. So I came back to London, lived with my grandparents. And then I did like an apprenticeship, a youth training scheme, which I still think is the biggest mistake the government scrapped the YTS program, because tons of hairdressers I know who are super successful started on that scheme. And then I ended up in New York working for Bumble and Bumble, which was also a salon on 56 and Lex.
You got fired from
I got fired from, I didn't get fired. I always have this thing with the guy that owned with Michael Gordon, because I'm pretty sure he thinks he fired me and I've always thought I quit. But anyway,
he left.
I mean, I used to go out clubbing and then I used to sit in the front of the salon waiting for someone to let me in.
Oh God.
Yeah, but it was amazing, an amazing experience. It was such a buzz. I mean, everyone was in there all the time. I mean, like, you know, Madonna was, you know, taken in downstairs through the back door and Debbie Mazar was doing her hair. I mean, it was just incredible, such an amazing environment. And then I think it became quite apparent that I was never going to be a hairdresser, because I think by that point I'd been on an assistant for like longer than anyone had ever been an assistant. It's like a world record. And so I got a job. Something happened where my dad got me a job working for this Japanese makeup brand called Shuemura. And it was a girl that he knew who was a receptionist at his salon, who was also a model, who had met this man and he had asked her to open and run this shop for him. And so she opened a shop in Century City in LA and I went to work for her. And then she resigned and walked out. And as you do, if you're a feminist and you walk out. Well, I kind of walked out with her because I thought solidarity, you know, she's walking out for a reason. I should walk out. So I walked out and we went to my dad's shop and she told my dad the story. And then my dad just looked at me and said, why'd you leave? I was like, because Marina left, you know. And he said, why don't you go back and take her job in front of her, which was quite embarrassing. And I did. And then the shop wasn't making any money and I hired a bunch of friends. And we just turned a profit in 3 months and that was it, really. Wow. And then they asked me to come and launch the brand in Harvey Nicks in London, which I did. There was no other brand like it. There was no MAC or Bobbi Brown or Mercier or anything at that point. And we were taking tons of money, doing really well. And then I was approached I used to have a lot of makeup artists come in. And one of them was Ruby Hammer, who was a makeup artist. And she and her husband approached me to help them bring Aveda to the UK, which I did. Then I met a guy and I brought Tweezerman to the UK.
How did you know how to do that?
I don't know.
A young kid, like, for anyone listening, how do you go from, washing hair to working in Bumble and Bumble to, making profit for Shumira?
I don't know. I think you just I think the thing is that I think with anything, you have to find solutions to problems. And so I think I'm a reasonably deep thinker. So I'll say, okay, well, there's a challenge. How do I turn that into something better, or how do I fix that problem? And so I think I'm quite good like that. So when I took over Shuamura, part of the problem is that the staff weren't that interested. The door was always closed of the shop, and it looked really like imposing. So I thought, well, how do we make it look warmer and buzzy? So I kept the door open of the shop, played really loud music so people would come in, always made sure I had 2 girls in the store all the time. So there was always someone there. Because before that, the way it was scheduled, it was like slim staff. So they would have one person in there. And if they wanted to go to the loo, they would lock the shop and go off, or they would go off and, so the shop was closed half the day. So it was like things like that, I think. I think if you want to, I'm not saying that like, this is the only way to succeed. But for me, the way to succeed was to think longer and harder and slightly more differently than other people. That makes sense. And I'm not lazy. That's the other thing. I do work very hard at it. So I'm not lazy at all. And then I think when I launched Shuamura here in London, I just had a real vision of again, how I wanted to create a busy environment. And so and there were ways that beauty was sold in London, in the UK at the time. Everything was behind a counter. It was like, hello, madam, how may I help you? What are you looking for today? I was like, fuck that.
Almost air hostess mode.
It was revolting. It was so like cold and like condescending. And so people would walk into the shop and I'd go, hey, what's up? All the testers are there. Try whatever you want. Let me know if you need anything. Made it feel really warm. And or I would go downstairs and get people coffee from Joe's Cafe and, or do you guys want a drink? I'm going to run and get some coffee. So-and-so will look after you. I'll be back in a minute. That kind of, I just made it really warm. And, Knightsbridge at the time wasn't like that. It just probably still isn't very much like that. But, it didn't feel like it was that. It felt quite obvious to me to sort of, and also when you come from a hair salon where you are talking to people like that all the time, to bring it into a different environment felt quite natural. So
it is natural when you think about it. The idea behind that.
And then I guess what happened was somebody called me up and said, I represent a makeup artist. They're doing a fashion show. Would you be willing to give them product? Which is then how I got into sort of the PR kind of thing, because at that point, no one did that. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll give them product. So I said, have them come in. They can choose what they like. I wrote off all the product in my inventory because I was managing all the stock, and they did a fashion show, and it was the right one to do at the right time. And I got loads of press from it. And then I was like, well, this comms thing's easy, isn't it? Because the way you are in a hair salon and the way I was in the shop is actually the way I would be with press and journalists. So I think there's a sort of natural conversational sort of strand that.
But press back then must have been like so important, because it's not like now where everything's instant. Everyone's on TikTok, Instagram. So I think, 20 years ago, you relied on, you needed that good press to get your name out there, and obviously not just word of mouth.
Yeah. So it was, but again, it was about relationships.
Relationships, yeah.
So, one of my best friends now she was a former journalist at Vogue. And I remember the journalist that was a beauty director at Vogue at the time, Polly Seller, wrote an article. And at the end of it, she wrote, and then there's Millicent, who wears her makeup just the way you want to wear yours. And I was like, oh my God, I've arrived, And she used my full name, which is mortifying. But anyway, it was, it was kind of a big deal, to have that kind of impact. And, I'm not a natural front person. So that was sort of like quite wild.
But to say you're not a natural front person, Then you launched Ruby and Millie,
Yeah.
and you and Ruby were the face of the brand.
Yeah, but if you notice in every picture, I'm standing just behind her because I don't really like being the front person. Yeah, I mean, the option, the decision to bring me out from behind the scenes, because I was really happy just designing the product and making product and stuff like that. I knew exactly what I wanted that brand to look like, and I created a spreadsheet of 365 products that I wanted. I knew exactly how it should be organized. But to bring me out from behind the little room, it was quite a big deal. I did not take to it very well. I left the country, actually. I didn't like it at all. I did. I literally left the country. I went back to America. I couldn't take it. I was like, I need to go back somewhere quiet.
But how do you start a brand? Like, what does it take? You know, I read that you got massive funding.
Yeah, so basically we were, so what happened is that somebody from Boots who I knew, so it's like relationships. So the buyer at Harvey Nichols when I launched Shuemura was a woman called Anne Berry. She left Harvey Nichols. She went to work for Boots and became the head of beauty at Boots. And she contacted me and she said to me, we would like to carry a Aveda at Boots. And I went, there is no way in hell that the guy who owns Aveda will ever want to sell in Boots. I can tell you that right now. And actually still to this day, they don't sell there. So I said, but I'll come talk to you anyway. So I took the distributor with me to go and meet her. And on the way back, he obviously had to turn her down. On the way back on the train, and these are the days when the train to Nottingham from St Pancras was like 3.5 hours. Yeah. So by the time you'd gone there and back, you'd like lost a day of your week. And I think he just had a light bulb moment. He was like, we should create our own brand. And Ruby was his wife at the time. And she was a client of mine because I was doing the PR for Aveda at the time. And he said, you and Ruby should have this brand. And I was like, whatever, idiot. I was like, don't be stupid. That's never going to happen. And then he pitched it to Boots and they gave us 7 million quid to do the brand, which was like ridiculous money back then.
But you wouldn't even get that now?
No.
There's no way in.
I mean, they didn't literally give it to us. They invested the money in the brand. I mean, they did give us quite a bit, but not that much. So yeah, you wouldn't get that much now.
No?
I mean, it was quite renegade at the time. Yeah. So
how do you decide how many products do you have, packaging, the style, brand identity?
I think because I'd worked in for a makeup brand for quite a long time, I kind of knew what sold, number one. So it's very important to do your research, know your market, know who you're selling to. I'd worked on the shop floor. I knew what women wanted. For the most part, they wanted beige eyeshadow, possibly a nude lipstick, and maybe a red just for the odd occasion.
That sounds like my makeup bag.
It basically is most women's makeup bag. And so nobody really wants the blues and the greens and whatever, because they might once in a while pop a bit of colour on, but most part, the bulk of your 80% of your turnover is sold on 20% of your stock. And that's generally speaking the nudes. So I kind of knew what we wanted, what would sell, but I also wanted to have the option to have varying different colours. I wanted it to be as colourful and beautiful as possible. So I did, with a friend of mine actually, a spreadsheet of all of the products I thought we would want, made it quite mathematical. So if I had 12 foundations, I would need 6 powders. Yeah. If I had 6 powders, I would need 6 concealers with double go days in them. And so it was, to me, it was quite mathematical. And then everything was developed on a spectrum of colour. So 1 was white, 2 was yellow, 3 was orange, 4 was red, 5 was purple, 6 was blue, 7 was green, 8 was beige, 9 was brown, and 0 was black. And so I kind of, and it's a weird thing, but in my head it seems so natural to kind of start with that and then go, okay, what colours am I doing and how many different variations of those colours are? So if I have a nude, am I going to do something that's got shimmer in it or a shine in it or a sheen in it or a cream or a matte? And so I sort of started with the number, then I went on to the colour, and then I went on to the finish.
Wow.
Is that really weird?
No?
And it just sort of grew and grew and grew. And then I ended up with this enormous spreadsheet of like 365 products.
One for
And
every
then-
day of the year.
basically. And then I gave it to Ruby and I said, okay, now you have to choose your favorite products or swatches or colors to match what we've mapped out. And then she added those because she was a makeup artist.
Yeah.
She knew what she wanted.
And, you know, looking back, it was such a revolutionary brand. You know, inclusivity, diversity.
Yeah, I know.
The
We forget about
packaging.
that. Yeah. The
Like
clear
that's out
packaging.
now.
Yeah, I
like
know.
Milk and,
Yeah.
you know, all these brands
Yeah,
that the kids
yeah.
are literally. What do you think about like time? And do you think you were ahead of
I think
your time?
I think we peaked too soon. I think probably the world wasn't quite ready for it. I think that Ruby and I always talk about, I mean, we're still very friendly today. We always talk about how, you know, people talk about inclusivity, but, you know, we were
Started it.
completely like that. You know, that was our sort of story from the beginning. And yeah, I mean, I think the packaging was clear, transparent. We wanted everyone to know what they were getting in the pack. We wanted people to know what the color was, what the quantity was, you know, what the sort of the smell, the feel, everything was before they got it. Everything was stackable. That's another thing now that's like quite popular. So yeah, we probably did peak before, like we were ahead of our time.
Yeah, because if you think about all the makeups, like all the Estee Lauder, it was quite sophisticated and grown up.
It was quite
and then
mumsy at the time. Yeah.
And then you just come out bang with, you know,
Yeah.
I don't want to say the word funky.
No, but I mean, it was sort of, I mean, the thing is that it was pretty renegade again.
Yeah,
and it
that's
was,
the best word.
Yeah. And I think the thing is, oftentimes I think that success isn't just money. Success is coming to market with something before anybody else. And so whilst a lot of brands have made a hell of a lot more money than we ever made, doing something that is either a replica or a mimic or has elements of what we did within it, we did it first. And it's like, you can often sleep at night knowing, do you know what? That was a success because we did something that had impact on everybody at a very early age without.
But does that come with frustration as well?
Not really, in a weird way. I don't really benchmark success on finance necessarily. I do think that oftentimes if I can do something before somebody else or I've come up with an idea that I can even bring to market, I think that's quite successful. I think there's varying stages of success when you launch a brand, right? So there is a sort of bringing to life an idea, that's success. Bringing to market the actual product is a success. Just landing it on a shelf in a retailer.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't celebrate those successes along the way and celebrate it for what it is, I think you'll never be satisfied with it. I think that's sort of.
But where do you start from, like an idea to getting something physically made, a physical lipstick, a physical eyeshadow, to packaging? You know, if I'm sitting at home now going, oh, I've got this amazing idea for a lip gloss, where do you start?
Yeah, I think the big trick to that for me was looking outside of my industry. I think a lot of people they're navel gazing. They're always looking at what's going on in the industry. And you do need that market research. But I found a lot of our packaging in other areas, baby products or food packaging, and I think some of the most interesting products have been pulled or inspired by other industries. Like one of the things I loved, which we didn't really use, was maybe we did use it a bit, is BASF, the people that do the car paint, metallic car paint. Like they've got the most amazing color palette. They create the most amazing finishes of paint for cars. And I just thought, I don't know why I was so obsessed with them at the time. And I was like, if I could make eyeshadow that looked like that car color paint, like if you're looking around the room and there's certain, I don't know, you find inspiration everywhere. I think a lot of times people are they look very narrowly at where being inspired to create packaging or a product. They sort of think, oh, that's been done before. There was success with that. I'll tweak it a little bit and put my name on it. It'll be fine. That's never successsuort.
No.
It doesn't, I don't think there's a longevity in that personally.
How did you get into PR?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I sort of got into PR through the whole Shuamura route because obviously I ended up kind of working with a lot of makeup artists on shows, and they introduced me to editors, and I became really friendly with the editors. And again, I think that's down to personal relationships. Still really good friends with loads of the editors now. And then I sort of ended up leaving retail side of the business and just having the PR agency. That was a gateway between Shu Uemura, Aveda, L'Occitane, and Tweezerman. And then I ended up with my own brand, Ruby Millie. But I've always had a strand of a PR agency behind me. So I've always kept that business. And when we did Ruby Millie, I launched the brand myself because I knew how to do that.
Yeah.
But then it very quickly became a bit weird, me constantly calling up, trying to sell my own product to somebody.
Hey, it's me.
Hi, it's Millie, trying to sell you Ruby Millie. So I felt like a bit of a twat, really. So I tried to find a PR agency, and I wanted to find somebody, again, that looking outside of my industry that could bring something different. So I found a fashion PR agency, and I said to them, I would really like to use you to do the PR for my brand. I'll guide it because obviously I know the beauty press and I kind of know how it works. It's different than fashion. So they said, okay. So I kind of worked with them, dropped the PR for a bit because I had the brand and I couldn't do both. It was too much. And then when I resigned from Ruby and Millie, I moved and I'd run away to America at that point.
Why did you resign?
I just started to not look like me. You get to a point when you've got a brand that somebody else is running everything, and you walk into the room and say, I really want this. And they'll say, it's not very Ruby and Millie. And you sort of think, oh, shit. You lose your own identity sometimes. And I really like the creative process. And I've often said I'm really good at startups. Like I can get shit off the ground, but then I get really bored.
Why do you think that happens, that, the brand becomes something else? Is that based on what the customer is buying? It might not necessarily be your favorite things, or...
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the things that I loved the most were things that probably didn't sell very well at all, in truth, because I'm not very good at that next phase of like, I'm not very good at building something so it makes loads of money. I'm really good at the nugget, the starting point. Because
that's
I've got broad
coming from
shoulders.
The passion and what you believe in, and you start it.
I got broad shoulders. I don't sleep very much. I love the adrenaline rush of getting something off the ground. But then when it's landed, if people don't buy the shit I really like and they want to buy the stuff that I think is really boring, I lose complete interest. And then the people that run the brand then go, oh, that thing really sells very well. And I'm like, ugh, that's dreary. So it just became, we just lost interest, I think.
So you're like Mary Poppins or the Nanny McPhee of brands. Like when they don't need you anymore, you go.
Yeah, exactly. Except I don't turn into a beauty and leave the room.
No, you start as a beauty.
I look more and more drained as the career path goes on. But yeah, I do think that's definitely my MO. Yeah. I kind of wish it wasn't, because I would like to learn to do that middle bit, but I just don't think that's who I am. I don't think that's my
Do you think it's important to play to your strengths?
Yeah, I think that is really important. I think that I know a number of people that I have worked with throughout my career that really want to be able to do what I do and they can't, but they're very, very good at the next bit. And actually, if we tag teamed, we'd probably be really good as like an organization or, but I don't think that, I think you do have to play to your strength. You have to know when to leave the room. That's with anything in life.
God, I never know when to leave the room. Yeah. I need to learn that. I'm nearly 40 and I need to learn.
Yeah.
So should we talk about Brandstand and your...
Yeah, so now I own a PR agency called Brandstand, and I, in fairness, and he's probably going to hate me saying this, but I don't really do very much there anymore because I do speak to journalists all the time, but I don't necessarily... I talk to them more about the politics side of the work that I do with the British Beauty Council, but we represent loads of brands, and I have a partner called Andrew Pereira who owns the business. He's amazing. He was a senior vice president of comms at MAC and really launched it in many, many, many global territories. So he's superb. There's a girl that works for me called CJ Brown, who's a huge fan of yours.
That's a nice name.
When I said I was coming here, she said, can you give me a name check? And so I said I'd drop that in.
Hey, CJ.
Yeah. She'll be very happy.
How do you go about, deciding who to work with? You know,
Well, again, if it was up to me, I would work with an unknown brand that was really tiny that had no money to pay us. So I stay out of it, because the problem is that I like those really I like the underdog, the small niche brand that nobody knows about, that I can make something of. So whereas Andrew is much cleverer at picking the clients that make the business work. And also the clients that are, there's also, we also have a bit of a sort of theme where we work very well with the naturals, those kind of brands.
Yeah.
So the brands that are known in that sort of arena.
And, you know, for all our listeners who are, you know, thinking about launching their own brands or who've already started, when is the time to get the PR company in?
Well, this is the challenge. So basically, I'm the kind of person that will see a brand and go, I really want to do your PR. No brand of that small size has money to pay on PR. And also you have to pay a retainer normally. So you would pay money every month. And at that early stage, you don't see the results. So if you've got an endless pot of cash, go for it. Pay the PR from the beginning, give them a retainer. It will pay off eventually. But if you don't have cash, don't do it. What I would suggest people do is pay on a project basis. So say, I can give you X amount of money, a finite amount of money to launch the brand, can't pay you after that. PRs don't mind working on project basis. I think that if you commit to a retainer, you're eventually going to be disappointed with your PR agency. Your PR agency is going to run out of ideas because they've got limited product. So for a brand to be successful in beauty, you have to constantly innovate. And that keeps the PR rolling, the new innovation, the new exciting products. If you don't continually have that, the PR's got nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
So the vehicle doesn't work, if you see what I mean. So the PR and the brand thing don't work together.
Is there still, a huge appetite for PR companies with, social media, TikTok?
Yeah, so we do both.
Influencers?
Yeah. So we do both print and digital. So we do tend to find the most successes when you combine the two.
Yeah.
And that works really well. Social media has its place. It's instantaneous, but also it can be full of bullshit in terms of the information that people are sharing.
What do you think about the new contour vibe, where they're literally drawing on their face?
That contouring thing's never been for me.
It just makes me laugh.
The challenge for me is with young people is they're constantly looking at themselves like this close with a phone this close, and that is really worrying. I don't remember growing up ever looking at myself that much.
I don't.
So I don't think it's our generation. It's not. I just don't. We didn't look at ourselves, and that is a worry. And less about, to be honest with you, less about social media. It's more about the contortion of, their self-image,
their own face. Yeah,
and that is worrying. And then if you're constantly unhappy with how you look, you're constantly seeking out something to fix it. And I think again, that becomes an issue. I mean, with misinformation and stuff online, we at the British Beauty Council, we have a product called Creator Collective where we teach influencers essentially, or creators. We have a 6-module course on skin health and skin physiology and SPF, so they can learn from experts.
Do you have to pay to get on that course?
No. And we've done it with a controlled cohort of 10 people 3 times, and now we're about to hopefully open it up.
Oh, wow.
We can have a certain amount of people on it at the same time. So people will have to apply for it.
That would be so amazing for people to be taught properly instead of sellotape. I'll put some sellotape there.
I mean, the thing is with the sellotape thing, it's like, I was talking to Val Garland, the makeup artist, the other day, and it actually is a really old technique. So it's not even that new. Like taping to do your line, is not that new. So it's been around, God knows, I don't know, 40 years, something like that. 50 years. So a lot of the stuff that they're talking about it's been done before. It's just, it's new to a new generation. I always say in beauty, you get the class of. So you get the class of like 97 or the class of, and this new cohort are funny because there's sort of a slight dichotomy between class of Greta Thunberg. Let's save the planet, but let's buy more shit off TikTok. It's
so
like
true.
They're quite confused in terms of who they are and what they stand for. They want to save the planet, but they buy loads of crap. So, just stop buying stuff and then you might be halfway to saving the planet.
Can we go back to the British Beauty Council and why. So why did you start? I know you've kind of said this before, why did you start the British Beauty Council?
I think I started the council because there was just a frustration that we were an industry not taken seriously. People think we're vain. People think we're stupid. People think we're not very economically viable. And I just a long time frustration from having seen my dad in the industry. Yeah, almost 25 billion a year at the current moment. 2019 was 30 billion, but obviously because of COVID.
And it's still so overlooked.
It's really overlooked. I mean, now it's not so overlooked because we've actually made government now understand that there are 500,000 people that work in our industry, or more than 500,000 people, and almost 90% of them are women.
Yeah.
So we are probably the largest female workforce just behind the NHS. So we've got in the private sector, we have the largest female workforce of any other industry. There is not a government on the planet that doesn't want the female vote. They want the pink vote.
Yeah.
So that's actually helped us quite a bit.
And can you define why your values are reputation, education, innovation?
Yeah, so we started with reputation, education, innovation because we wanted to raise the reputation of the industry. So we defined it. We defined the industry because you can't value what you can't see.
Of course.
So we defined it and we determined that it was made up of products and services. Then we valued the industry. So we did an economic report called The Value of Beauty that gave really a lot of context to the size and the sort of
I couldn't believe some of the stats on there.
Yeah, it was £28.4 billion worth contribution to GDP, over 500,000 people that work in the industry, 86% female-owned businesses. I mean, it's enormous. It is enormous. So, and it's larger than aerospace industry, larger than car manufacturing. But yet, if a car manufacturing plant closes in Milton Keynes or wherever they are, the government go and bail them out. But if a eyeshadow flurry plant closes in Aberdeen, nobody cares. I mean, it is, and an entire town is decimated because there's, hundreds of thousands of women that are making eyeshadows, So it's that kind of stuff that really pissed me off, that we weren't taken seriously. And actually, and I say this all the time, we touch everybody's lives every single day. I don't fly every day and I don't drive my car every day. I certainly don't buy a car every day, but we are on every high street. We're the hearts and minds of every high street. Most high streets in England at the moment have charity shops, hairdressing salons, nail salons, and probably a beauty therapist somewhere upstairs and a coffee shop. That's
so
it.
true.
That is it. And we are...
God, that is so true.
I live in Highgate. There are probably, from the Highgate station to the village, I probably could count at least 9 salons, including a barbershop, hair salon, beauty salon, nail salon, on my way from the station to the village. So it's I mean, we're everywhere, and it just nobody acknowledged it before. So so reputation was about.
How did you get into Parliament?
Yeah, I'm a bit gobby.
A bit gobby.
So how I broke through to Parliament was really interesting because a girlfriend of mine who lived on my road, who was she used to be at Vogue, she was at Elle as well, fashion. She was a fashion editor, stylist. She bumped into her in the park and she said, you should start something to represent the beauty industry. And I was like, whatever. And she said, I'll take you to meet Matt Hancock, who was at the time the culture minister. And I went to go meet him and his team, and his special advisor walked me out and said, we don't recognise the beauty industry at this government. You have to go away and organise yourself and come back. And I was like, okay, fine. So we did. That was literally how we did it. Went to Portcullis House, had that meeting, came out. I think I might have cried on Kathy Phillips' shoulder. She was the founder of This Works, because I was like, okay, well, this is really depressing. I thought we were going to go in and go, hey guys, we're the beauty industry. We make loads of beautiful products. And they were going to go, welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
So
they were like, go away and sort yourself out. And so it took us a couple of years to do that.
Wow.
But also,
did you feel like giving up at any point? Did you think, I'm just not getting ahead, nothing's going to change?
No, I'm a bit stupid like that. I don't sort of think that, actually. I just kept... No, I'll tell you why I didn't think that, because the more people I spoke to, the more people said, we need to do this. This is the thing to do. And so I do work better in a group. Yeah. So I don't do anything on my own. I've never done anything on my own. I always partner with other people. And the more people I spoke to, the more I was convinced it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And I felt like we were greater in numbers. So I kept holding these big conferences or like big tables and inviting people. And I would say, okay, this is what I want to do. And are you in? And they would say, yeah, we're in. So it was about kind of galvanizing troops, really. But to your point about how did I get into Parliament? Because I had an MBE. I got an MBE in 2007 for Ruby and Millie. The irony is that just opens doors, because it is of no benefit in any other way other than when you send an email, people will sort of take notice. At that point, people were taking notice, because then my name would ring a bell. They might look me up. They'd know I was from Ruby and Millie. And then all of a sudden I'd had an element.
Listen to it because we give her an MBA.
Right, exactly. Well, also you have an element of success.
Yeah.
So you it starts to impact other things. So, I mean, I don't think Matt Hancock gave a rat's ass that I had an MBE really, but his assistants would have looked at it and thought, oh, well, okay, well, maybe she's quite serious, or maybe she has something interesting to say, and they'll give you some time. You know, obviously you can't walk in and say a bunch of stupid stuff, so you have to be quite serious and know your stuff. But I do think that does open doors, actually. I guess COVID was that moment. Like, even when we launched The Value of Beauty in 2019, I did think, oh my God, who's going to read this? Who's going to listen to me? And you do get those sort of like imposter moments where you think, oh my God, I'm still the sort of blonde hairdresser's daughter, kind of like left school at 15. You know, I just work really hard. Like, I mean, I'm just a grafter, really. I'm sort of like, I would say I'm jack of all trades, master of none, because I'm not actually particularly very good at anything.
You definitely are.
Well, I'm good at galvanizing people and getting people on board, and like kind of I'm good at the social thing, which I think kind of then that plays to my strength, which is kind of bringing people together, and like I enjoy that people aspect of it. But I think that I'm not an expert in anything, so I try to let the experts kind of lead and speak, so that, because I think inevitably that makes me look good. If I bring you to a party or an event or number 10 Downing Street and you speak on behalf of what you know best, I look good, you know, makes me look good. So I
literally don't know anything.
But the thing is, I can't really, you know, I get asked to speak on like, you know, could you speak on stage or whatever in front of 1,000 people? I'm like, what am I going to talk? I don't know what to talk about. I don't, you know, it's really, I find that quite challenging. But I think there were moments when I was like, who is going to listen to this? But then when COVID happened, I was so emotional, and I just literally ran on pure adrenaline again. And so I think when I run on adrenaline, it tends to sort of work.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't sleep for a year, and I just was like, okay, we're going to storm Parliament. We're all going to wear pink high-vis vests.
Amazing.
You know, it was literally that. It was like WhatsApp groups with like...
That was such a scary time though, because, you know, my sister's a hairdresser. You know, so many of my friends are in the industry who were self-employed, and their work just stopped.
Yeah.
Their money stopped coming in. They had bills to pay, kids to feed. And it was so scary, such a scary time.
I think a lot of hairdressers as well, even if they've got big salons, a lot of times what they do is they pay themselves a small salary and they take a dividend from the profits of the business. Well, if they're not open and they're not operating, there's no profits. Yeah. So they found themselves, they couldn't furlough themselves, and they had no income.
That's right, yeah.
So they were living off savings. So I think it really did affect, and they're still having to pay rent for the most part. They weren't given any, you know, any help in that regard. So, I mean, in the beginning of COVID, we were unrecognized. I already had a relationship with government, but not to the degree that I have now. But we were unrecognized. We weren't even told to close our doors. I mean, they didn't even list us on the list of businesses. I had to get them to list us on there.
You are joking.
No, we weren't listed. So I had to get them to list us on the businesses, because the businesses that were listed on the government's website that were told to close were going to get a grant. And because we weren't listed, we weren't going to get anything. But yet we were terrified. So we were closing our doors, but we weren't on that list. So I had to get us listed on that list. Then we got the smallest grant. We got the latest reopening. Fast forward to February 2021 when we properly opened, we got the highest grant, we got the earliest opening. We worked our arse off, and then we also got our own team. So now we have our own team at government level that work with just our industry.
Wow.
So it is, and there's 4 people on the team, and it's like, I can call them up whenever I want. I can, they're there for us. They help our industry, which is an amazing turnaround.
Are they helpful?
They're brilliant. They are brilliant. Yeah, they are really brilliant. I'm really fond of them, and I feel really, because I really demanded that we have our own team. I mean, this is a workforce of 500,000 people, and you don't know anything about our industry. I'll tell you, I'll educate you, but we need a team that's going to support us. And yeah, they are really, really helpful.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I hats off to civil servants. It's a tough job. I think there's a lack of respect, I think.
Oh, yeah.
For that people that do that job. You have to be politically unbiased, like almost apolitical, but you're doing a job for a government.
Yeah.
And so I think it's challenging, yeah.
Where is the mission now, and what would the ideal outcome for the beauty industry be for you?
We need things like aesthetic regulation. We need,
yes.
I want freelancers to be able to employ apprentices. Like if your sister's currently self-employed, she can't hire an apprentice to train them to do hair, whereas salon businesses can. That's slightly challenging, I think.
Yeah.
Because there's more and more people freelancing. So under the sort of traditional apprentice route, I think that would be really helpful for our industry. So there's things like that I think we could I want fixed. But, long term, I think we've got a seat at the table. ESG obviously incorporates sustainability and DEI. So there's a massive amount of work to be done there. I mean, we really need to innovate and find alternatives to plastic.
Yes.
It's just a given, isn't it? We can't use paper because of deforestation. Glass has implications. Aluminium
Stella
is good.
McCartney's beauty range is all sustainable and refillable, and
so reuse and refill is definitely the way I think. So basically, to me, with ESG, there's a few options.
the younger generation is so much better than that than we are.
Yeah, they are.
I've had to educate myself at home, but even like my kids, like, Mom, you can't put that in that bin. You need to recycle.
That's what I'm saying about the class of Greta Thunberg. The kids are really good like that.
Yeah, but please take me to Space NK.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly true. So I think there's 3 routes to this. I think the long-term goal is innovation, right? We have to innovate and find something brand new that replaces plastic. But that is way, way off. The middle bit, the medium term, is reuse, refill. That is the solution to reusing and refilling plastic, because plastic is a material that we made to last forever, but we throw it away every day.
You've got so many accolades, your MBA, OBE, how did that happen?
I got a phone call from London. I was living in LA. And so it was like the beginning of December, and I got a message saying a letter had arrived at the London office to say that we were going to be given one. But they didn't read me the letter. And in those days, I don't think you scanned and emailed back then. I can't remember. But I thought that meant we were going to get one. And then, so I told my dad, told my family. And then I got sent a scan or copy or a fax of the letter or whatever it was. And it actually says you're not allowed to tell anyone because you might not get it. And I was like, bollocks, I've just told everyone, that's really... and then I had my daughter on the 16th of December. And then I came to London. I got it in May that following year. And that was awesome. I mean, my mum was really sick, and my mum came, and my dad came, and my older daughter came, and we left the baby at home. And my dad cried, and it was really
some
emotional.
achievement though. It's
it's quite impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, for my family, it was kind of a big deal, But so it tends to often be more of a big deal for your family than you in a weird way. But the Queen gave it to us, so that was incredible.
Yeah,
because she smelled of like roses, like she smelled quite aldehydic, like talky.
Yeah, that's the smell I'd put was the Queen.
And they briefed her so well. My God, she was so well briefed. She asked us loads of questions. When you launched the brand, did you think it was going to be this big? How is it working with Boots? Blah, blah, blah. I was like, it's like 100 people in line, and we were right at the end. And she was so like, I don't know how she did it. She stood there all day doing this. those investitures must be very hard work for them.
Yeah.
And then the second one was, so the first one was for services to cosmetics, the cosmetics industry. And then the second one was services to hair and beauty. That was an OBE, which I got 2022, I think.
Did you ever think, looking back when you worked in the hair salon, that years down the line you'd have these accolades under your belt?
I mean, you don't really expect to get them, do you? So it's like kind of a weird. Like I said, it does open some doors. It's and I wonder how it would have been, what it's like in the US. I think in the US they probably think it's quite cool, don't they?
Yeah.
I think with all of those things, yeah. I mean, it is amazing, and I'm really proud of it. But I really wish my grandfather had been alive to see it, because he would have been really, it was from, like, 3 of my grandparents were born in the East End of London. So for them to like come from that really working class background. No, I mean, it's like, it's like working class background, and for them to see you achieve something, they would have been absolutely overwhelmed.
Oh yeah, completely.
But none of them were alive. Well, actually, one of my grandmas was. But she was so ill at the time. When I showed her the video of me getting my MBE, she thought it was a film with Helen Mirren in it. Like, she didn't actually believe it was a real queen. She goes, I've seen this film. I go, no, Grandma, it's not that film. She goes, no, I've seen it, the one with Helen Mirren in it. I go, no, Grandma, that's me, and that's the real queen. And she was like, she had no idea. It was really funny.
What is the biggest challenge you think you've faced throughout your career?
Well, I think not having gone to university, I think that's quite a big challenge. Because I think people drop it into conversations quite a lot. When we were younger and we all went to university, I'm thinking, shit, I didn't actually go to university. So I think not going to university, being a woman, not having formal education, I think is the biggest challenge I faced. And actually, in a weird way,
in what way? That you feel you're not equipped, or you feel?
Because
so many people we've had on here.
I don't feel not equipped. I just feel like other people's perception of me changes when they know that I didn't go to university.
Well, welcome to my world at my Scouse accent, and I didn't go to uni.
No, I mean, I think it's not my perception of me, it's other people's perception. That can be quite challenging, I think, because you're sort of dealing with a completely different set of circumstances, because you walk into the room and generally people make an assumption about you. Yeah. Within the first few minutes of meeting you. And then when they sort of start to talk to you, and the minute that sort of comes out, everything changes. That's quite frustrating, I think. It's quite challenging.
Some of the most successful people who I've had, certainly on this podcast, didn't go to uni.
Yeah, I don't know necessarily if it's necessary, but I think I'm 56, so my generation, if you didn't, you were an idiot. Is basically the sort of, nowadays, it's not quite like that.
Yeah.
And sure, I mean, I know loads of very successful people that didn't go to uni, but there is a certain generation, and maybe it's just in the UK, it's a class thing as well.
Yeah, it definitely
Where
is.
I think it's kind of like my grandmother owned a cafe and my grandfather drove a cab. But by that point, my dad had done really well. So I didn't come from that background, but he did. So it's, so there's that sort of, I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
But then in certain circumstances, it is challenging because you're sort of,
no, I get it.
having to sort of justify
it and prove yourself.
And that's why I think being a grafter kind of works, because when you have to prove yourself more, you do work harder at it.
You've mentioned a lifelong frustration with the patriarchy in the workplace. Can you tell me a bit more about this? How did you navigate that?
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing about our industry, is that there are 86% women-owned businesses, and let's say 85% women dominated, almost 90%. But 15% of them, the 15% that's men, are all at the top of the industry.
Yeah.
So that's always been quite frustrating. I mean, I've been spoken to I did a really good job for a company once, and I was taken to Amsterdam by my Parisian boss, and I was told that, and I had said, thank you so much for, investing in me. And I'm so glad you could see that I could do this job. And I said to him, I'm really glad that somebody's finally realized that I'm actually quite clever and I can do this. And he goes, what makes you think you're here because you're clever? Things like that. Like,
Oh, God.
Meanwhile, he's like, I'm eating oysters and he's pouring my glass with champagne, you know. And I was like, okay, this is not what I thought was going to happen.
Wow.
So there's things like that.
Yeah.
Once I actually flew to Japan with a company that I worked for and my boss, and we got on the plane and there were 5 seats, and it was in economy, but 5 seats. And he laid across 4 of them while I sat in one. It was like, I was like, okay.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. You kind of know where you stand when that happens.
Oh
and then
God.
my suitcase, I dropped my suitcase in Roppongi down the staircase. My knickers and bras were flying everywhere. And he just stood at the top of the stairs as I ran down, kind of trying to get all my stuff together and put it back in my case in front of like thousands of commuters coming out of the train. No one stopped to help me. And he just stood there looking at me going, we're going to be late. If you know. And I was like, you know, so I don't know. There's like things that happen in life where you think,
fuck you.
Yeah, basically.
Do you think you've always been politically driven?
Well, I think my mum was a bit of an activist. So my mum was like a bit of a weird hybrid of a punk and a hippie. So she wore no shoes and her hair was green when I was like 8. So
Love that.
I would say, and you know, we used to be dragged down the King's Road when we were little so my mum could go shopping at sort of Sex or something. So my mum was always quite an activist. She was always very liberal. She worked at the sort of AIDS clinic, and you know was like during the 80s really helped the LGBTQIA community. She was really makes me feel very emotional. But during the AIDS, you know, epidemic, she was really like. There were always people living in our house and she was really helpful to people. Anyway, that's always inspired me. And I think that having a mum that's like sort of on the edge all the time, and it did actually eventually, she was actually a bit nuts. So she was quite eccentric. But I think that sort of propelled me politically. I think that's always made me think, shit, you should always, always, always fight for what's right. Yeah. Sorry, that made me really get quite emotional.
Your mum was obviously a huge influence on you.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to explain because she was quite nuts, my mum. When you're an 8-year-old kid, your mum's picking up from school in 1976 and she's got green hair. And people calling her Pen 5, like the tennis ball, because she literally looked like a tennis ball. That's kind of weird, but she was very sort of anti-royal, anti-government, you know, like real sort of activist, you know, that kind of thing. So I think that was always in my DNA as a kid.
Yeah.
Because we were always sort of, it was always drummed into us.
It was around, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was always drummed into us that, you know, we should fight for what we wanted. And she was a proper feminist. Like she was like a sort of, she was mega feminist. I like the sort of slight PR side of politics as well. I find it really interesting.
Well, it's a form of PR in a way, isn't it?
Yeah,
Think about it.
That's what they do. They sort of go around and they try to convince
everyone
that
what they're saying is
absolutely.
Yeah,
and I think that's quite interesting. And also, because I have done PR for so many years, I can kind of see from their point what I can give them that's going to make them look good and what's going to help them and. You can see where it's like a sort of a bit of a game. Yeah. So I want you to do this for me, and I'm going to do this for you, and it's a negotiation. So I think it's quite. I mean, I have to be quite apolitical in my role because I can't, you know. But I also have to work with the government that exists. So, but if it was up to me, I would vote completely.
For yourself.
For myself. For my beauty industry. No, I would vote, I would be completely, I wouldn't vote for,
any of our options.
Yeah, I find it difficult to sort of, I find the options quite challenging. I mean, at least it's better than what they've got in the US though, isn't it?
That's
true. You know, anything's better than that.
How do you think the industry has evolved since you started?
Access to entry into the industry is much easier.
Yeah.
So anybody for very little money can launch a brand.
But where do they...
It's so easy to do it. You can buy product off a shelf, put your name on it. Minimum order quantities are reasonable. They're getting higher, they're creeping up. But it's so access to entry is much more accessible. But to have a successful brand, there's so much competition, way more than I ever experienced when I had a brand, that it makes it harder to actually succeed. Yeah. So I think the most important thing really is to know your market, and in your gut, you know whether you've got something that's special. And I mean, I do think it's really important to know your market. The amount of people that I've come to me and they said, I've got this idea, I want to launch a brand. And they've met a mum in the playground and they've gone, we're going to launch a brand that's going to be a candle with 3 wicks in it. We think we're going to make it smell of fig. And you're like...
So you're going to say fish?
Yeah, fish, yeah. That would be unique. That would be really unique. But, there are Diptyque, Neon. I mean, there are brands that already do that. And so I always am often surprised by how many people think they've got a unique idea and they haven't even gone on the internet to Google it. Like, Google it,
Yeah.
Most things have been done before.
Yeah, well, how do you stand out in a crowd? Because, most things already exist. Lipsticks, mascara. How do you bring an innovative product out?
Well, the word innovative is key to that. You have to be able to innovate and you have to have something that's very, very new and very, very different. Like, look at Marcia Kilgore's Beauty Pie. The products are the same as other products. Products aren't different. How she sells it,
yes, and
the factory direct concept and the subscription model concept, that's unique.
But isn't that marketing?
Well, no, not necessarily. So with Ruby and Millie, a lot of people say, oh my God, the product was amazing, the packaging was amazing, the formulas were great. I know all that was brilliant, but to me, the biggest success was that we launched it in Harvey Nichols and Selfridges, and then we went into Boots.
Yeah.
Now,
so you went mainstream?
Well, we went mainstream from being premium. Now, that is a model that people still use today.
Yes.
They launch their brand in Liberty and then they go into Space NK or more wider distribution. So what we did was not just created a product that, is mimicked today in other people's packaging or whatever. That's just fashion, isn't it? That's just trend. The model of distribution, I think, was really unique because nobody had ever gone from premium to mass before. Mass had always stayed in mass and premium had always stayed in premium. And we showed that a brand can cross that divide, and that is still exists today. And so that is the thing I'm most proud of. Exactly.
Isn't it? It's like, all these, high-end designers will bring in
their diffusion
more
ranges.
of a affordable absolutely. Range, and it's across the board from interiors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we did that really early on. And I think that is the thing that I'm most proud of. And that's when you have to look at the innovation isn't just the physical product. It's your distribution model. It's how you market it.
Yeah.
It's how you PR it. Whether you do, guerrilla marketing and you go and graffiti across, I don't know, Marble Arch, whatever it is. Don't do that, by the way. Get arrested. But, how you bring that to market is also part of the innovation. So I think a lot of times people are very linear in how they bring a product to market or a brand. And they think
fake tan and putting a girl in a bikini on a beach.
You can't launch something normal and then become radical. You can't do that.
No.
I don't think anyway.
If you could change one thing about the beauty industry tomorrow, what would it be?
It'd be nice if hair extensions were invisible. No,
because didn't pull your hair out.
Yeah, you wouldn't pull your hair out. And also sometimes if you have them ever put in, it's very hard to sleep in them. What would I change? I don't think I'd change anything. I think it's kind of like slowly, gently moving in the right direction. I don't know. I think we're quite a nice industry. I think, the one thing I think about the beauty industry is I think we should, people from the outside see it as a touchy-feely kind of caring industry. And I would like to say that I hope that we continue to care as much as people think we do. I think that it could go horribly wrong if we're not that kind of caring community, and we become toxic and, not very nice. But I think for the most part, particularly in the UK, most of the people I know work in the industry are wonderful people and they all get on and it's not bitchy at all. Despite the fact that some people might think it is.
Yeah.
It's actually a really nice community. And so I don't think there's much I would change. I mean, there's some regulation that needs to be had.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's good that you wouldn't change anything.
I'm quite happy with it. I think we're sort of, you get the odd rogue annoying person, but it's not that many of them really.
And what do you think? What's the next big thing in store for the beauty industry?
Well, we need to regulate the aesthetics industry, because I think the thing is that more and more people are going to. Well, I think that fillers and Botox will.
Do you think that's going to end up being like sunbeds of our generation? Everyone did it. It's like, don't do it.
I think the problem is, before we started the British Beauty Council, that horse had bolted from the barn, right? So because they didn't regulate it in the beginning, it's very difficult to then
pull it back.
So, but we will try to pull it back as much as possible, because I think the challenges with that piece of work is doctors are safer. It's safer to have a doctor do Botox and fillers, because they've been educated longer, and if anything goes wrong, they can help try to fix it. But as estheticians and beauty therapists generally have a better eye. But if something goes wrong, there's no redress. You can't sue them or do anything about it, because something's gone wrong and you're screwed. That's it. You're stuck. So that is a challenge. The regulation, I think, will help. But what I think will happen is that certain lasers and ultrasounds and certain machines, energy machines, will start to take the place of Botox and fillers anyway.
Yeah.
So I think that the aesthetics industry is moving at such a fast pace, probably equal to AI. Yeah. So we are, what we're regulating for now might not be what we need to deal with in the future, which is slightly a challenge for us as a British Beauty Council, because we're kind of like trying to fix a historical problem. And I think that in the future, I think Botox and fillers will be relatively obsolete.
Yeah.
Because
I feel like they are now.
Machines. Yeah, I think there'll be machines that will do stuff. Yeah.
The technology for the beauty industry has changed so much and so rapidly.
Yeah. I went to a conference in Paris, and I was privy to a presentation by a machine that basically is an ultrasound machine that penetrates 1.5 millimeters below the skin. And I met the woman that invented Botox, one of the pioneers of Botox, who was amazing. And even she was saying this is the future. So I do think that that's going to be the biggest change. And also younger and younger. People are using those machines at a younger age, so that they talk a lot about not pro-aging, but sort of like almost canceling age.
Yeah.
Like you will be able to cancel age. I think there's a certain generation.
People are doing a bit of a U-turn though now. I am noticing that more and more. People are a bit like,
accepting of it.
Yeah. Just know about, growing old gracefully and, being more, less filters. I think people are sick of that, sick of perfection.
But I think you can't. So the idea behind the lasers and the ultrasounds is that you can cancel age without changing how you look. So certain aspects of aging do come on gracefully without you looking. Because the other challenge is, I think, for a lot of people in their mid-30s, they're confused as to what age people are.
Yes.
Because there's a huge chunk of the demographic that all look about 35, 40. So it's really difficult to know how old anybody is anymore.
It's true.
I've never had fillers or anything like that. I'm a big fan of the laser.
So for anyone who doesn't know about lasers, what is it and what does it do?
I mean, things like it evens out skin pigmentation, the sort of finish of the skin. It can sort of make it feel a little tighter. I think laser is the future. I think lasers and ultrasounds are the future. And I think so that is what I mean about the industry moving so fast. A lot of people with quite bad skin will have treatments, laser treatments.
Yeah.
And their skin will be so much better for it. And also, a lot of the treatments, the skincare treatments, you have to wear such a thick layer. You have to be very careful with your SPF. And I know that, a majority of, because either you use a very white SPF so you can see how much you put on it. I think you have to be very careful when you're using those treatments, those acid treatments, those peels and stuff. I mean, I've never used them personally, but I think you do have to be quite careful about the sun, obviously. And
Definitely.
You should really use SPF anyway. I mean, ideally, if everyone used SPF from like childhood, we'd all look younger anyway, because the biggest proponent of aging comes from the sun.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
And it doesn't matter whether you're on the beach or not. That's why we age.
Millie, I've absolutely loved having you on today, so thank you. But just one more question before you go. If you could give any of our listeners one piece of advice for starting out in the beauty industry, what would it be?
Be creative, be inspiring, and just really enjoy it. I think it's an industry that you can that is really enjoyable to work in.
Yeah.
Just think about it, you know, things smell nice, things look nice, they feel nice, makes people feel good.
Yeah.
I think you just have to be bold and beautiful. Somebody very famous once told me that. Be bold and beautiful. Dame Barbara Cartland once said, be bold and beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think that is, yeah, that's my one piece of advice. Be bold and beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.